right, let's hit the field.
All rise. Just wanted to talk, that's all.
The trade deadline is fast approaching, and the Yankees have some decisions to make. Will they or will they not trade their biggest prospects? Can they shore up the pitching staff? Can they get the offense going in the right direction? Joining me tonight is Foul Territory's Scott Braun. Buckle up, got a good one for you. This is NYY Recaps.
Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
Just when they thought I was out, they pull me back in.
Welcome back, everybody. Joining me tonight is Mr. Scott Braun of Foul Territory, of whose hair I am exceedingly jealous since I shaved all of mine off. Scott, how you doing, man?
I'm probably warmer than you, although you got the FT hat on, which is super cozy. But I'm good. I mean, I'm in a good mood. It's trade deadline week. Nothing's happened yet, but this is one of my favorite times of year. This is Christmas-ish for baseball fans.
I say that all the time. This is like the holiday. Like, this is the time of year where I sleep the worst, except for the winter meetings. Because the winter meetings, they always break stuff 2 a.m, and you got to be ready. Like the Juan Soto thing came out middle of the night. I had just turned off my phone, and I got up to go pee. And when I came back, I just, let me check the phone one more time, and the move had been made. So this is the time of year, man. I'm loving it. So how are things going with Foul Territory, man? I'm loving the growth. I love watching you guys every day. It's been one of the privileges of my career.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Obviously, awesome to have you on board. As you know, it's been a really cool rise in terms of what we figure out our voice should be like, who should be involved, right? We've had some players added to the mix this year that I think people have been excited about, former players, Trevor May, Cam Maben, guys like that, right? Keeping some of the core, and then also just really diving into what people want, which, you know, this time of year is trade deadline talk. And when you have Ken Rosenthal part of your team who is breaking half of those trades, it's the best. And then you're also friends with anyone else that has, I think, a relevant say in terms of actually talking to GMs behind the scenes and getting real word on what's actually happening. So it's been great. And then the TV edition has been cool. Obviously it's YouTube first. We didn't give any of that up. You can hear us on the pods and everywhere else, but it is cool to bring in an audience that might not have seen you, that might not be on YouTube. And it's actually a way to kind of bring them in. I've been doing this lately, Derek. I think you like this, where sometimes I'll be on there and I'll go, hey, and if you want to ask a question live during the show, you can still watch it on TV while you're doing that, but at least hop into the chat here on YouTube and interact with our great people on here that are having conversations and asking questions, and we will ask some of those questions on the show.
And by the way, feel free to send in your questions for Scott here. So we've got some things that we're kind of lined up to talk about, but we'll be happy to deviate as necessary for the audience. We love our fans, but it feels like, Scott, over the last few years, the Yankees have kind of tried to fit queen-sized solutions over king-sized problems, and the corners always keep popping off, right? They're doing that again this year with J.D. Davis. You know, and I just feel like there's issues within the organization itself, not necessarily with the roster in any given year. No roster is perfect, but maybe like philosophy-wise, maybe like culture-wise. What's your assessment of the Yankees as an organization from the outside? You know, as somebody who's not a Yankees fan, when you look at the organization, what do you think?
I don't feel like it's modernized enough. Maybe that's too harsh because I look at the game in a certain entertainment way. There's so many things that make the Yankees special and professional and feel different from everyone else. The history already comes with it. I'm just always wondering if it feels like they're having as much fun as everyone else, because that can put on added pressure. And I don't even think all of that has to necessarily do with New York. I mean, look over to the Mets. It's not like you're trying to mimic the franchise in terms of wins and losses. But this year, they're struggling. They're not a great team. It's not a playoff team on paper from what I saw heading into the season. They're exceeding expectations, I think partially because they've come together. They signed someone like Jose Iglesias. They let him do a song post-game. They have celebrations with the OMG sign in the dugout. I always ask, would the Yankees do this? Would they feel like they need this? No, they don't do that. So I would like to see that. I think it's fun. I think it would make new players feel more comfortable and fit in very quickly. And that's really important in the game. When we interview players every day on Foul Territory, you hear that sometimes. You're like, oh, the Dodgers? Okay, maybe they haven't had the best postseason success. They've had the one World Series title during this run. but they've had success with certain players that they either come over there or come up from the minor leagues and kind of hit the ground running, because they always say the same thing. I don't feel like a rookie, and I feel like I'm having fun and bringing over what I did in the minor leagues to the major leagues. So that's like the high level criticism. Of course, there's definitely conversations we can go down in terms of, being over analytical. And I think some of that was solved last year with the changes that they made on the hitting coach side, which I'm sure was covered at length. But that's my high level look at things. I'm like, are we having enough fun? I think they did bring a little bit of an edge with some players like Stroman and Verdugo this year. I think that's good. I'm always a fan of like the Tommy Pham. Sure, you don't want him the whole season, but you want to bring him in because you feel like you need a punch in the face. Diamondbacks did that, made it to the World Series.
I really like what Stroman has brought. Like just the intensity, even calling the lack of intensity out in the dugout. You don't see that a lot. And it actually sparked the Yankees that game that, they exploded after that. So it's maybe something they needed. They tried that with Josh Donaldson, but I don't think Josh Donaldson had the type of edge that they were looking for. They kind of wanted someone who's a little bit, on the edgy side, but he's more of like just a walking pain in the ass. He wasn't like, a rah guy. You know what I mean?
He wasn't performing too, which always hurts. It's easier for a guy to say something if he's doing it on the field, because Donaldson was that guy for the Braves at one point. I don't know if you remember. He had that bang up season. What was it, 3, 4, 5 maybe years ago at this point, and it held an impact. But that was what they needed, and that might not be what the Yankees needed. So I think it had to do with that. The one other guy that comes to mind, because it was the same day, I think. So Stroman, and then you had Justin Steele, who was freaking out in the dugout, and the Cubs actually went on a little run after that. Yeah. I'm not saying everything has to do with, the way that one dude freaks out, but I do feel like variety is important in baseball. It's important in your bullpen, it's important in your lineup, and it's important with your personalities.
And it's important in your diet. I just got a question here from the chat. It says, Scott, what is your diet like? And I joke all the time, Scott is the version of me from an alternate universe that eats vegetables. Like, I feel like we have a similar shape of our, like we're both the same height, broad shoulders, but you're healthy and I eat gummy bears.
Yeah, that is, it's more of a problem that came up. I mean, I've always been into working out, but the food did take it to the next level where, gluten and dairy are the ones that you can probably really connect with, because those were the two, maybe 15 years ago that I had to adjust. And once I did that, the body changed pretty quickly. I gained some definition from that. So without getting into all of the specifics, I will say though, for as much as I love a good paleo meal with meat and, salads and all of that, my girlfriend is currently behind this screen making cookies. They just happen to be, with dairy-free chocolate chips. They basically taste the same nowadays. So there's just little tweaks that help to tell the story here. So I'm happy to lay out the whole game plan at some point in the chat, maybe on FT tomorrow while someone's asking a question.
Yeah, we don't want to hijack the whole thing with Diet Talk. But the last thing that I wanted to mention while we're on this topic is the whole beard thing. Like, I feel like it's time to let that rule go. Don't you think so, man? I mean, every player who leaves the Yankees grows a beard immediately. It's a tough enough place to play. Why make it that much tougher? Even if it's just something that doesn't seem that big a deal. Like, oh, it's just a beard. Like, it's not like some unbelievable tradition for 80 years. This was a rule from 1977 or something like that.
I'm totally on that boat. And if anything, I've scaled back at times because people get so mad. They feel threatened about it, as if they created the rule and it's breaking the ultimate law. They try and make it a political thing, which is super strange. I don't understand it at all. I think it's way past its time. I think you're preventing certain players from being themselves. Right. I'm all for rules and following certain restrictions if need be with a team. But if you polled everyone anonymously in the league, you'd probably get 95+% in the league saying it's so stupid. If they didn't have to put their name attached to it, it's so stupid in today's world. I'm not saying that the players should go out there in sleeveless and a thong. I'm just saying this is the one spot where we can make a tweak now. Do we really care if a player looks like this? Does it matter, or like you?
Sleeveless and a thong that might help expand to the, female audience a little bit, which I know baseball is trying to do. So
MLB tried that, remember? It's become less of a story just because everyone's used to it, but the sweat on certain uniforms looks pretty disgusting, and they're working on changing it, but it's so bad that we've gotten used to it. When a team's in a certain gray and then it becomes a dark gray, it's been ugly. But I do think it's time for it to go, and I don't think it should be that big of a deal for people to freak out. Like, I'm sorry. Are you related to the Steinbrenners and you think it matters that much? I think most people don't care, and They need to get over it. And it's weird. It's just something that makes people turned off. And right, I think it brings a badass component too.
Yeah.
Lance Lynn is not the same person if he doesn't have this like grizzly bad attitude towards him, like on the mound at least. And they are preventing that. There are some relievers that keep their hair long at all times because they do really feel like it's a distraction to hitters. We've interviewed some players that have felt that way. Josh Hader won't get rid of it because he feels like it helps his fastball be more deceptive.
Like, who are you more afraid of in the box? A guy who's out there with a big grizzly beard and a mean look on his face, or like the guy with the double chin that's like 250 pounds and, wearing pinstripes? I mean, come on. Yeah. So, all right, let's talk about Tarik Skubal, because this is a guy you guys have had on your show. I think he's an awesome dude. Like, he was one of my more favorite interviews to watch. He's just a really cool guy. Currently 10-3 with a 2.41 ERA. Got a zillion strikeouts. He's left-handed, 27. Won't be a free agent for another couple years. What am I missing? Why would they even consider moving this guy when they're plausibly a playoff team in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I've just been ranting on and on. I've done a few radio appearances in the last couple of days where the name keeps coming up because he has just as good of a shot as anyone to win the Cy Young Award, and he was my first half Cy Young pick in the American League. Hell no. Hell no. Tigers fans should go nuts if they entertain a trade for him. If the Orioles want to give their entire farm system away, and I mean like 4 top-end prospects, sure, anybody has to have a conversation if we're including, Kobe Mayo and Jackson Holiday and even a Colton Cowser. Like, if we're just going down the line and going insane, everybody has their price. But the Orioles won't do that, right? So if the Orioles are offering up like 2 of those guys, I'm hanging up the phone so hard. It's one thing if this guy is going to be a free agent after the season and they've already put a contract offer his way and he's like, I don't want to stay here. I'm not all about it. Cool, that's different. This is 2.5 more seasons of the top pitcher in the American League right now for a team that's not that far away from being a playoff contender. So if you looked at them and said, okay, they're the White Sox, they're not going to be good for at least 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 years, that's fine. But this is the kind of guy at 27 years old that I would be not only riding, but then offer an extension either now or in the offseason. The Tigers aren't poor. They used to spend like a real team. You get passed on to the next generation in the ownership group, and they've kind of pulled the reins back, but it would be a massive mistake in my mind. He's also big. He's like 6'3", 240. He's got the build where you're like, this dude can pitch till he's 35, and he's 27. So I think it would be a disaster if they end up trading him. Disaster. They shouldn't do it. We shouldn't even be talking about it, and I'm pissed that it's even come up.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Skubal and I see Randy Johnson before he went on that run. You know what I mean? Like when he was he was like you see him at the All-Star game. It's like, wow, this guy has some crazy stuff. And then he's about to go on that run. Only he's like he's already on the ascent, 10-3 with it. He's got 1 million strikeouts this year. So yeah, I don't see any scenario where the Yankees would even have what it takes to get. I mean, if you want to trade Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez and like 2 other guys, you might have a conversation, but I don't think they would do that. I don't think they should do that.
No, I agree. The Yanks have to have a core too, which we can get into, but I'm all for keeping those 2. I don't think you have to keep a ton, but I think the really good teams that are putting together sustained winning are circling 2 to 4 prospects and saying, basically, no matter what, we're holding this. Even if we have to trade 3, 4, 5 guys from the next tier, that's fine. But that's the way to win nowadays. I mean, look at Garrett Cole to the Astros back in the day, right? I mean, we knew the Pirates weren't going to be able to keep him. They aren't in the same stratosphere payroll-wise as the Tigers, even though they should be. They're probably in a similar range right now, but in the past they haven't been. So they were like, we can't keep him. Let's trade him. Look back at that trade. Let me know how they did. It's a disaster.
Let's talk about Garrett Crochet, because I do think that Crochet is more of a realistic option. But there's some things with him that kind of, unsettle my stomach a little bit. We don't know, at least I don't, if he's even going to be able to pitch in the playoffs. Like, what's his inning situation like? What have you heard? This is a guy he's like kind of like Luis Gil, where he's way over anything he's ever done at the major league level in terms of innings pitched. He's pitched really great. He hasn't been quite as good lately, but he's still having a really good year, still dynamic stuff. Electric fastball, ton of strikeouts. To me, he reminds me of Chris Sale a little bit, younger version of Chris Sale. But what are your thoughts on Crochet and what it would take to get him and who's the favorite?
Yeah, and he's got a little more meat on the bone, so that helps. But it still is a law of averages where if you haven't pitched that much as a starter, which he hasn't done, you're likely to either A, get hurt, or at least B, fade down the stretch if you keep going on the same schedule. right? So here's what I think will happen. I think he will be traded. So I think he'll be the top arm talent available on the market. You might go to a team like the Dodgers or the Orioles. I think they'll immediately put him on a game plan where they'll probably scale him back, whether it's skipping starts or I think even potentially putting him in the bullpen for a couple months and then kind of stretching him out and seeing where they're at. If it's the Dodgers, it's different because they might have enough of a rotation anyway where he just serves as a 2 or 3 inning ace that's coming out of the bullpen in hot spots like that Josh Hader or Andrew Miller back in the day, which would be nasty. And he could definitely do that. And then you would save up the innings. I think he's going to go to a contender that's not going to treat him the way the White Sox are right now. I'd be shocked if a team's just like, yeah, let's do 200 innings coming from 30 or whatever it was last year. It's just not common. And if you're trading for him, you're giving up a lot and you still have 2 years after this. So you have to protect the long-term asset, but you do want to use him this year. You're not going to just shut him down. But I think the White Sox are just like, he's almost gone. Let's audition him and make him look perfect. And then the next team will have to deal with him. So if you're a Yanks fan, first of all, I don't think they're going to get him because I think it has to involve one of those 2 names that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they want to do that. And I don't think they will do that. But for their, other teams they're going after, or like the Orioles say, I could see a team like that bringing him on, help out the bullpen for a little bit, and then they'll figure it out in the postseason. Maybe he's fine and they kind of like rebuild him back up to 4 or 5 innings in the postseason, maybe 6. But you have to be careful just because you look at the past and everybody's had problems if you go from 0 to 100.
It's really inconvenient for the Yankees that the Orioles are this good because they've still got this horde of prospects that they can move. And the division is so close that they're going to be going for it. They've got this new ownership. They're going to be trading. They're going to be trying to get better. And the Yankees just can't hang. They can't fuck with the Orioles prospects. They really can't. And I'm not willing personally to give up both Jones and Dominguez. Like, it's probably going to cost both those guys. Like, if you want to make this kind of significant move. And, just considering the competition in your own division, which makes me wonder if there's like other baseball deals out there. Can you move Gleyber Torres for somebody who needs a bat? Can you get a Tanner Scott? Can you get a Jazz Chisholm? Are there ways that you can build this roster so maybe it's not the king size solution, but maybe you get a couple of hairpins to keep the sheet on?
Yeah. And those are all good names, and that's more in the ballpark of what they should be looking at. And here's the thing that the Yankees should always be doing, especially in a time when they don't want to shed some of their top prospects. Figure out ways to be creative with money. Take on all of the money, right, from a player. Because sometimes they've been creative in the past. I think maybe it was like the Gallo deal and a couple other deals where they actually convinced the teams to keep some of the money. This is not one of those cases right now because they don't have the same prospect capital that they've had in the past, in my mind, especially in terms of depth. So I'm making sure that I'm taking on cash. I mean, I brought this scenario up for a Luis Robert. I don't think that's necessarily a fit for the Yankees, but he's got significant money left. And I'm telling other radio stations like, hey, you should be able to take on this money so that you're not giving up too much in a prospect return. I think the names you're bringing up make a lot of sense. I think Tanner Scott would be awesome. That'd be a great guy to have left side out of the bullpen. I think they need another guy there. I know, Yankee fans have been on and off about Clay Holmes, not as sharp at times this year as last year. Gleyber's the tricky one for me. I think you can trade him for very little to a team. Right. Probably might have to. I mean, he's not cheap. I don't know what he's making. Probably 10
he's
to
like
15.
Making $12 million, I think, but he's one of those guys, he goes to Seattle, he's going to hit 340 for a month. He's going to do it, and he's going to hit bombs, and he's going to be Gleyber again. He's just not comfortable right now in New York, and the pressure seems to be getting to him. I think a change of scenery would be great for him, but they'd have to replace him. I mean, who else are you going to put over there at second base? I mean, Jazz Chisholm is somebody that has been talked about. I don't know much about Jazz Chisholm as the second baseman. Have you watched him at all play the infield?
Yeah, I have. And I liked him better at second base, I think, than any position I've seen him at from what I recall. So I think he could pretty easily shift back over there. They auditioned him at least one game right before the All-Star break to put him in there. And that was solely for the purpose of saying, hey, just so you remember, he has played second base in the past because he's not the world's best center fielder, right? They threw him in there and he's been okay. I would be curious to see what his current defensive metrics are, but also by the eye test. The spot for him is second base. So it's not a bad idea. The Marlins are definitely going to trade him. He costs some money, not a crazy amount, but it would be potentially a good change of scenery for both sides. I would do that. I don't think you're going to get much of anything for Gleyber. And the concern probably for the Yanks is we're going to take on Jazz, trade prospects for him, take on the money, and then also have to trade Glaber and eat some of the money. So that is tough for an ownership group to swallow. So I just want Yankee fans to temper expectations. You're probably not going to get much for him. Like if you do trade him to Seattle, they might give you like a player to be named later. It might be that low if they're taking on the money. So
bonus pool money, baby. Give me that international bonus pool money.
Something like that, and just say okay, because you're hoping that you upgrade the spot, because it's tricky. We've gotten on Foul Territory plenty of trade ideas where people are trying to include him in a deal to a team that's not a contender. I'm like, that makes zero sense. They would never take that unless it's already a trade built for them to flip. Very complicated. But I do think he needs to be replaced right now. I think it's been too long, and I don't think the Yankees can afford to have that for the rest of the season. Like it's been. Where are we at? 65% of the year.
102 games. I mean, the 60 games left. So
switch it up. There are options. So that's a good one.
What do you think it would take to get Lucas Erceg? He's with the A's, right? Or is he?
Yeah.
A's.
He's with
got
the A's.
Good heat. Yeah.
He's a hotshot reliever. There's a lot of time left. In terms of years of control. So the A's are going to try to work you more than say the Marlins would for a Tanner Scott. So I'd rather get a Scott because he's not going to cost as much. If you're the Yankees, I'm not as concerned about the long-term relievers right now. So I would rather get a guy that's a rental. That's generally where I'm looking right now if I'm the Yankees. Let me get a reliever that's got 1, maybe 2 years of control left, and I'm including this season. So Erceg, from what I remember, he basically just got scooped, so he's probably got 4 or 5 years of control. So I just don't think it's the right person for the Yanks.
What about Jesse Winker? We got a comment about him. I liked him a few years ago, but I haven't seen what he's done much this year. Let me look him up.
But where's he going, right? He's not a good defender. You're not clogging up the DH spot. Yankees care a lot about run prevention. Where's he going?
So he's listed as a left fielder. Does he not play left for – is he just not good?
He plays some, but he's not a good defender.
In left field at Yankee Stadium, you really got to be like a center fielder level skill too, you know. And I will say this for Verdugo. He's played a very good left field, but – the hitting has just been miserable. He did have a nice opposite fieldish kind of hit to the left of second base today. Maybe that gets him going. When he's at his best, he's doing that. But I don't rule out the possibility of getting a new outfielder because we're just not getting production out there from him.
Yeah, I just want someone that can pick it well. Yeah. Winker's had a great bounce back year. He's been like a 3-WAR player or something like that. I think the defensive metrics are playing a little better than they did in the past, but I'm not buying that. I don't think that's the right fit for them. There's
80 on base percentage.
It's great, but okay, when G comes back, how does this all look?
Yeah, G's probably going to be back, tomorrow or the next day. That puts Judge back out in center field. That forces Grisham to the bench. I wonder if they would move Grisham. I wonder if there's any. I know he's not hitting, but if somebody needs an outfielder who can catch the baseball, he's pretty good in center field.
It's expensive too, though. It's the same thing. In baseball,
his salary was $5 million, and they owe him $1 million the rest of the way. That can't be too bad, right? It can't be prohibitive.
$2 million. Hey, Ty France is a good hitter. Okay, he's had struggles this year, and the Mariners just placed him on waivers. Anybody can take him right now, just like Kevin Kiermaier a month ago, who was not hitting a lick, but he's still a top 3 center fielder in baseball. No team is touching a player like that. Like Ty France is probably owed the same amount as Trent Grisham. And I'm like, why isn't anyone picking him up? You know who should pick him up? The Houston Astros have a little bit of a need at first base. And I'm like, how much of a kick in the ass to your rival would it be if you pick up Ty France and he starts bopping homers over the Crawford boxes? But that's why I'm looking and I'm like, how is this dude not getting picked up? He's definitely underperformed, but he's close to a league average hitter. He hasn't been terrible. No one's hitting in Seattle right now. I would definitely take a flyer on him. That's my problem is the league has gotten so ticky-tacky with every freaking little move. Like, unless the dude's thriving, they go, nah, don't scoop him up. We'll try and get the team to eat half the money, and then we'll call for a trade. So maybe I'm being too pessimistic about some of this. And I think the Yankees are definitely going to make at least 2 moves to show up, at least an infielder, and I would say at least a pitcher, probably a reliever. I don't know if they're going to get a starter, maybe depth in case of injury, but there's not a lot of top-end starters, so I don't think that's going to be the priority. I think they're going to rely on the big boys to ride them through, like Rodon staying healthy and obviously Cole being Cole, and Stroman bouncing back a little bit because he hasn't been as good, right, over the past – he started hot, but everybody fell off in the rotation to an extent.
Right. I feel like in the summertime, every pitcher kind of falls off a little bit with the heat. The ball starts traveling a little bit better. I'd have plenty of confidence with Stroman and the way he moves the baseball in that cold October air. I think between Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Stroman, Luis Heel, and hopefully Clark Schmidt coming back soon, and Nestor Cortez, I think you can make a playoff rotation where you get the innings you need out of the rotation. I mean, we saw, we saw openers in Game 4 of the World Series last year. Yankees can do better than that with what they have right now. So like you said, bullpen, I'm not comfortable with Clay Holmes at the back end of the game. I think he's a middle relief guy. To me, he's the perfect Ramiro Mendoza type that gets the fifth inning ground ball double play that you need, But I've never liked him in high leverage situations because he walks guys, and that just drives me nuts. And then, one more bat. I still think a third baseman, really, maybe a second baseman. Just give us one more better than average bat, contact wise, with a little bit of pop. And I think this team instantly becomes a lot better.
Yeah, the rotation can win a World Series. That's the point, right? So there has to be other parts addressed. You need a little more lineup depth. So that's like where you mentioned. You replace hopefully a guy like Glaber. And then on the relief pitching end, I mean, I'll bring up another name that came to mind who can close things down in the ninth inning, who's really been great. Kyle Finnegan, not talked about a lot on the Washington Nationals side. He's one of the better closers in baseball. That's a guy that I would look into as well, that I think could handle things in the ninth inning for the Yanks. There's a couple other names to keep in mind, but if you're looking for a closer that's not usually easy to find, there's probably going to be 3 names available on the market that Yankee fans would feel comfortable saying he's better than Holmes. I trust him more than Holmes.
Kratz told me it would never happen because there was kind of like a little fallout between the Yankees and this player, but David Robertson, if the Rangers decide to sell, David Robertson is somebody that I would feel very comfortable with. Even Chad Green, if the Blue Jays choose to sell. Those are 2 guys, and those are Brian Cashman moves, right? Let's bring in some nostalgic people that will excite the fan base, that are not going to cost a lot, that are both over the hill kind of, but you might be able to squeeze 3 months out of them, right? That does seem like Cashman moves.
I have one more for you that I think would fit really well here. Carlos Estevez has been one of the better closers in baseball in the first half of the season. He's the closer for the Angels. You might not have seen him much this year because the Angels haven't been relevant basically since the season started, but he's also really good, big, imposing, not really scared of anything, usually says what's on his mind. I feel like he would fit well in this kind of mix and really thrive in an environment like this. He goes from, I think he's only been on the Rockies and the Angels his entire career. He's never done this, but I think he would actually rise to this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Some guys aren't made for this moment. I think he'd actually thrive in this scenario. So that's one. And then one more, if the Rangers fall off, Kirby Yates. That's another one. I'm just looking at some of the guys. These are the guys I'm talking about that are all going to be free agents after this season.
Former Yankee too, Kirby Yates. Yeah, he was with the Yankees.
That's right.
So.
Great splitter. Those are the kind of guys Yanks fans should be thinking about right now. Don't worry about having a guy for 3-4 years of control. Most relievers, their arms fall off anyway. Get the closer that's going to be a free agent, that's pitching for a ton of money, who's going to shove in playoff games.
So last question here before I let Scott go, because I already kept him longer than I said I would, and I know he's got to get to these, vegan cookies or whatever. But so
They smell good.
Isaiah Kiner-Falefa hitting .292, playing great third base for the Blue Jays. Could we bring him back? What do you think? I think that actually might be a nice fit. That also seems like a Cashman retread kind of move.
It's not bad. It's not a bad idea. I think the Blue Jays would be happy to do it. Again, if we're going on the money route, he's on a 2-year, I think $16 million contract.
Yeah, 15. So he's making 7.5 per year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. And you can put him anywhere, and you know that the defense is going to be slick too. I don't know. For me, I still want a little more pop, probably.
Yeah, it doesn't
like
exactly.
Jazz will give you more pop. You know?
Jazz would be good. I mean, I like IKF. I've always liked his hustle. He's a good defensive third baseman, but he doesn't like. I'm not getting aroused by the thought of IKF. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't get me going. But.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think the Yankees keep public perception in mind as well. And yeah, while he'd be received okay, I think you'd still have to add someone else for me to really feel good about it. Like the Yankees and the Dodgers have a similar issue. It's not the same exact positions, but the Dodgers are doing some shopping right now because surprisingly, with all they did in the offseason, the bottom of their lineup's just not that intimidating. And when you get to the playoffs, you really feel that. Compared to, say, the Rangers who won last year, had everyone clicking, and 1 through 9, you were like, damn, like, who's this Evan Carter guy? You know, it got out of control where there was no weak spots in the lineup. And I know that a lot of people feel that right now. And when you're a Yankee fan, you're watching them play. I know Luis Severino was half kidding, but I mean, you can't have 2 guys that are hitting, above average in Major League Baseball, way above average, and feel like you're going to be good heading into the playoffs. Like that's not what you want. So yeah, I would say you're going to see some significant moves being made and the Yankees value pops. They're going to look for a guy that has, 25 homer pop.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to Scott Braun. Check out Foul Territory. We're live every single day. We're on Bally Sports, all that stuff. And like and subscribe to the channel. We're on a mission for 50,000, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Any final thoughts, Scotty?
Thank you. Happy trade deadline season. And lastly, Derek's show is awesome. If you're chilling during the day and you have questions for someone who's way smarter and more plugged in than me, Ken Rosenthal will be on our shows frequently. He's got his own Thursdays called Fair Territory. That's live. It also airs Monday, but it comes out. We record that. And then he's going to be on the show tomorrow. He'll be on the show, twice a week all year long. But tomorrow he'll be on and I will be like heavily monitoring the chat and just bring in the questions. You know how I do it. I'm like barely paying attention sometimes because I'm just like, let me bring in the questions. I want to kind of feed Ken what people want and also reward people for watching us live.
Yeah, Kenny Ballgame. I've got his number in my phone, and sometimes when the Yankees are playing like shit, I'm just staring at it like, Kenny, please text me and tell me that there's something coming. Come on, Kenny Ballgame.
You guys do text, though, a little.
Yeah.
We have the Fair Territory group text chat going. So
yeah,
Ken's a busy man, but I know you got a little creativity to your text, too. I like it. You had a good one today.
He knows that it would make my day if he broke a Yankees trade by letting me know. So I'm just putting that out there into the universe that, Skubal comes to the Yankees. First call, not to MLB Network, not to Twitter. Got to come to NYY Recaps.
Well, no more MLB. They broke up. But the Athletic, Fox, FT, the whole deal. But Derek, you said something along the lines of, let's continue the prophecy. Or I don't know. You had some fun line today. In the text,
so somebody said, we're going to send you this thing. And I said, in accordance with the prophecy, here's the thing.
Yeah.
So
it was nice. I like the creativity behind the scenes to break up the monotony of the day. So
got to get on Kenny's good side. All right, man. Yes. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thanks for watching the podcast. I'm sure I mentioned this during the show, but just in case I didn't, be sure to like and subscribe. It's very important. It helps other fans find the channel, helps grow the Yankees fan community on YouTube. So go ahead and hit those buttons real quick for me if you get a chance, and we'll see you next time.